The presidents of Russia and Venezuela signed a strategic partnership and cooperation agreement with which the Russian nation grants the highest level of relations to Venezuela and chooses it as the main partner in the region. At the Vatican City, black smoke billowed from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, signaling that no pope was elected on the first ballot of the conclave. And in Palestine on Wednesday, a new Israeli attack killed more than 60 people across the Gaza Strip as the Zionist blockade accelerates starvation on the coastal enclave. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a bilateral meeting in Moscow ahead of Victory Day celebrations. The Latin American leader is on an official visit to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's win over Nazism in 1945. During the meeting, the two leaders recalled the historical relations between the two countries, especially the friendship that Commander Hugo Chavez had with the Russian government and people. For his part, the Venezuelan president expressed the importance of participating in the Victory Day celebrations and the need to defend the role of the USSR in the defeat of fascism, which has been deliberately buried by the West. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, emphasized that both countries have reached a high stage of development and conveyed the special feeling of admiration of the Venezuelan people for the Russian people.
Truly, the Red Army with its great victory 80 years ago, the Russian people and the Soviet people and their political heroes, their military heroes, with a sacrifice of 27 million people, saved Europe and saved humanity, and it is a good time. Our delegation comes prepared, because it is the best time, in the 80 years of our relations, in the 80 years of this great victory, to give a new impulse, to make a leap towards an integral relationship of cooperation in all matters. And in the years to come, with the treaties that we are going to sign for 10 years, to see the relations flourish between the great Russia, today the main power of humanity, and Venezuela, from South America, fighting for the ideal of Bolivar and Hugo Chavez.
During the meeting, President Vladimir Putin thanked his counterpart Nicolás Maduro for his visit within the framework of the celebrations of the Russian victory over fascism.
Permítanme darles una bienvenida sincera en Moscú.
I would like to welcome you to Moscow. We are meeting on the sidelines of the BRICS group in Kazan. I am very grateful to you for finding the time and coming to celebrate the victory in the Second World War. We call this war the Great Patriotic War. It was a great war.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil, who is in Moscow as part of his country's delegation for the Victory Day celebrations, noted the importance of the treaty signed on Tuesday.
Russia and Venezuela, after 25 years of close cooperation, thanks to Commander Chavez and President Putin, are now preparing and have signed a strategic cooperation treaty that will take US to the highest level of cooperation. This is the result of this experience, and allows US today to offer our people the new, the novel, the modern. Venezuela and Russia have managed to consolidate a long-term strategic partnership. We are talking about a 10-year cooperation agreement that will allow US to accelerate the pace.
In this context, the presidents of Russia and Venezuela signed a strategic partnership and cooperation agreement with which the Russian nation grants the highest level of relations to Venezuela and chooses it as the main partner in the region. One of the central axes of the agreement is the creation of an independent financial infrastructure to facilitate trade and investment without depending on Western systems. This mechanism, according to the Venezuelan president, will allow a leap to an integral relationship. The country is signed to cooperate in the energy sector with joint investments in oil, gas and mining, and also in technology and defense areas. The Venezuelan head of state highlighted that this collaboration responds to the ideals of Bolivar and Chavez, while his Russian counterpart emphasized that strengthening the strategic association responds to the harmonic interest of both peoples. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with his Cuban counterpart Miguel Díaz-Canel at the Kremlin on Wednesday to address common interest affairs. In this context, the Russian head of state recalled that Cuban volunteers joined the Red Army by that time. Subsequently, the Kremlin leader commended Cuba's contribution to the great victory over fascism 80 years ago. Meanwhile, Cuban president attached importance to rescuing the historical memory in times where the Western elites were attempting to undermine the crucial role of the Soviet Union in the great victory over Nazism in 1945. Díaz-Canel stood out that the Russian people was credited to saving humanity from the Nazi atrocities. Furthermore, he drew attention to the new manifestations of fascism the world was facing. In addition, Cuban head of state praised their 65 years of bilateral amicable relations. The president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, held a meeting with the president of the Communist Party of Russia, Gennady Zyuganov, as part of his official work agenda in the Russian nation. During the meeting, the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Cuban Communist Party highlighted the transcendence of the victory of the then Soviet Army in the victory of the Great War, as well as the good relations between both parties. The Cuban president was distinguished with the medal in memory of the 80th anniversary of the Great Victory and thanked the Russian party for the support of the Russian party in the consensus reached with his counterpart Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. The meeting ended with the signing of agreements reached in 2024. In the midst of celebrations for the 80th anniversary of the Great Patriotic War, the Russian Defense Ministry reported that its air defense systems had shot down more than 524 Ukrainian drones in less than 24 hours. The military agency stressed that the air defense had withstood the Ukrainian attacks with honor. It also reported the destruction of long-range guided missiles and American-made multiple-launch rockets, noting that the drones were among the most expensive on the market. Despite Moscow's call for a ceasefire to coincide with Victory Day celebrations, Kyiv has continued to escalate its attacks in recent days, rejecting President Putin's ceasefire. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. And at the Vatican City, black smoke billowed from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel at 9 p.m. Wednesday local time, signaling that no pope was elected on the first ballot of the conclave. The smoke appeared roughly 4 hours after 133 cardinals entered the Sistine Chapel, took their solemn oath of secrecy and formally began the centuries-old process of selecting a successor to Pope Francis to lead the Church's 1.4 billion members worldwide. Since no candidate received the required two-thirds majority, 89 votes, the day concluded without a decision. Outside in St. Peter's Square, the atmosphere was lively as thousands gathered to witness the start of the conclave. And in the Vatican, the Sistine Chapel, in addition to serving as a Palatine chapel, is the seat that hosts the papal conclave to elect the new Supreme Pontiff to lead the Catholic Church. Let's see more details in the following work.
The Sistine Chapel is located in the city of the Vatican, inside the Apostolic Palace. It was built between 1477 and 1481 under the mandate of Pope Sixtus IV, from whom it takes its name, and designed by architects such as Giovanni del Dolci and Baccio Pontelli. The Sistine Chapel is a masterpiece of the Renaissance and a symbol of religious art. Among the famous artist's masterpieces inside the chapel is the Viol by Michelangelo, which was painted by commission of Pope Julius II, including more than 300 figures, with scenes from Genesis such as the creation of Adam. It also includes the Final Judgment, a work also by Michelangelo that covers the main altar, which represents the apocalypse with Christ judging humanity. And on its side walls, it houses frescoes by Botticelli, Perugno, Ghirlandaio and Rosselli from the 15th century, representing scenes from the life of Moses and Christ. In addition, this chapel is the place where the conclave, the secret meeting in which the cardinals elect the new pope, is held. It hosts the first conclave in 1455, and it was officialized as a fixed seat in 1878. In former times, conclaves were held in other churches or even in cities outside Rome. Historically, holding the conclave in the Sistine Chapel is a visual reminder that cardinals are under the gaze of God and salvation history. It is because of it that the Sistine is considered the only place in the world where art, faith, and power merge in a sublime way. Electing the Pope is not a tradition, but an act that unites heaven and earth.
In other news, the onslaught against human rights on the part of the conservative forces in Peru doesn't stop. For the consulted experts, the institutions that co-govern the country seek impunity for the police, the military, and the designated president, Dina Boluarte. From Lima, our colleague Ramiro Angulo with the report.
El Ministerio Público ha cambiado nuevamente.
The public ministry has again changed the prosecutors investigating the case of the nearly 15 people killed during the protest against the Congress and the de facto government of Dina Boluarte.
Pero no solamente que ha salido la doctora Raquel Cárdenas, han salido los fiscales que estaban...
But not only Raquel Cárdenas has left. The prosecutors who were in charge of her, who were in charge of the investigation, have left. And they have even moved some people who had temporary positions and who were supporting those prosecutors in this investigation. That is to say, all the people who are investigating today most of the cases of the social protests have never had access to the file. They have never any kind of connection to this investigation.
Nunca han tenido ningún tipo de vinculación a esta investigación.
En su lugar, han puesto fiscales sin experiencia en derechos humanos.
In their place, they have put prosecutors with no experience in human rights, and according to specialists, the measure will seek to delay the investigations and shield the police and military involved and even the president-designate, Dina Boluarte.
Eso sí nos preocupa porque hay un corte no solamente de la estrategia.
This worries us because there is a cut not only in the investigation strategy of the prosecutor's office, but there is also a recent lack of knowledge of some people who are just starting to work on these prosecutor files. There are some cases that are already on time, and we do not understand how prosecutors who have just started as permanent or provisional deputies could know quickly what they are dealing with.
Conocer rápidamente de qué se trata.
Desde el Congreso han aprobado una ley para fiscalizar el
Congress has passed a law to oversee the financing of non-governmental organizations, another to declare crimes against humanity imprescriptible, and now seeks to pass a law to grant amnesty to police and military officers sentenced for crimes against human rights. Finally, if the Congress of the Republic takes this decision, which I believe it could, it will take the side of the murderers, of the people who have disappeared people, of the people who have raped, kidnapped, tortured, as Fujimori did in 1995, the purpose is to guarantee political strategy of denial of history and of absolute ignorance of the rights of the victims, and a much more complete denialism in this matter.
Mucho más completo en esta materia. Por su parte, el Tribunal Constitucional prepara...
The Constitutional Court is preparing a ruling to prevent Boluarte from being investigated for the duration of her mandate, as they did with former President Martín Vizcarra and Pedro Castillo, thus facilitating her downfall.
Facilitar así su caída.
Ya nos han dado evidencias de que estos están confabulados.
They have already given us evidence that they are in a confabulation. They have an alliance, a pact between these institutions to shield all those responsible for all the murders. So we will not be surprised when the court says that they cannot be investigated. That is why we are going to arrive in the capital to make the respective hearings in these institutions that are practically visited with the government.
En esas instituciones que prácticamente están parcializadas con el gobierno.
Para los expertos consultados, no hay duda que en el
For the experts consulted, there is no doubt that in Peru the institutions that co-govern seeks to undermine the defense of human rights and rewrite the history of political violence in favor of the conservative forces of the right.
A favor de las fuerzas conservadoras de la derecha. Desde Lima para Telesur, Ramiro Angulo Maquiavelo.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. On a short break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine on Wednesday, a new Israeli attack killed more than 60 people across the Gaza Strip as the Zionist blockade accelerates starvation on the coastal enclave. Separate attacks on a restaurant and school in Gaza City killed dozens of people, while a reconnaissance drone strike targeted an area near the Thai and Palmyra restaurants in Al-Waida Street in Gaza City. In addition, the missiles were fired at two locations at the same time, killing at least 17 people, while another attack killed 13 people at Al-Karama school in the Tufa neighborhood. The non-stop strikes evidence Israel's ongoing genocidal operation in the Strip, which continues targeting civilians in crowded places. The attacks have caused acute food shortages, accelerating the starvation of the Palestinian population. The Director General of Sana'a International Airport, Jailed Al-Shaif, confirmed the suspension of flights to and from the capital of Yemen following the attacks perpetrated by the Zionist army. The General Authority of Civil Aviation and Meteorology has strongly condemned this aggression launched by the Air Force of the Israeli enemy, which left at least 3 dead and 38 wounded. The director of the agency, Jalel Al-Shaif, confirmed that this event resulted in the destruction of civil aircraft and airport terminals, as well as the runway and civil facilities. In this regard, this attack is qualified as a flagrant violation of international agreements, in particular the Chicago Convention on the International Civil Aviation of 1944. China has agreed to initiate a dialogue with the United States, the foreign ministry spokesman said on Wednesday, confirming they will not negotiate their conditions based on respect, equality and equity. He Lifeng, member of the political bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party and Prime Minister of State, will be in charge of these talks. The Foreign Office also informed that the Swiss government has offered to host this meeting, which will take place on May 9th. He will meet with Scott Bessent, Secretary of the United States Treasury, in several sessions over 3 days. Beijing has been categorical in reiterating that Washington must demonstrate real willingness to resolve differences and correct practices contrary to the international trade order. The European Union expresses concern about possible new U.S. tariffs which would affect a wide range of products. Representatives of the continental bloc have warned that the imposition of new tariffs could impact up to 97% of its exports, which currently reach a trade volume of 549 billion euros. In response to this threat, the Europe Group is intensifying its efforts to diversify trade and investment relations with other countries and to mitigate the impact of the complex relationship with Washington. Although they have expressed their desire to reach a negotiated settlement, they consider the situation unacceptable and will respond to the challenge it poses. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.